Welcome students to this series of tutorials where I'm going to show you how to model using Fusion 360 an heirloom box project that would be quite similar to ones that you would find in the school workshop. So it's always good practice when we start for the first time is to start a new design and save it immediately. So we've got a name and we're saving it in a place where it's known. So we'll go save. I've already set up a folder for this one, but I'm just going to call it Heirloom Box Tutorial. Once it's saved, before we actually start sketching, we need to set up some parameters, which is just going to make things easier if we need to modify it down the track. So we can just go to Modify, Change Parameters. We're going to set up some user parameters. So the first one is going to be the overall length of the box. Make sure our unit is set to millimeters and we're going to make it 220. Now we can always come back and change this later. We've got another one which is going to be overall width. It's going to be 130. Overall height. And material thickness. Now I've used 12 millimeters because that's a fairly standard thickness of material, but another standard thickness is 19. So you can easily change it in here and the box will readjust. It means you don't have to redraw the entire project. We'll go OK. All right, so the first thing we'll do is we'll start our first sketch and we're going to just start modeling the carcass. So create sketch. We want to sketch off the top plane. And I like to start with a center point rectangle. So I'm going to select the center and then come out. And you'll see over to the right there, the 76.928 is highlighted. And I'm just going to start typing in there because that's the width. So I'll select overall width and then press tab. And overall length. There we go. Now I'm just going to go so that zoom back out a little bit, pan up. So we've now got we're happy with our rectangle, so we can just press enter. There we go. Now what we'll do is we'll create the thickness of it. So quite easily we can use the offset tool and we can just select this outer of the rectangle. Drag in, so we know it's going to be minus material thickness. Okay, so there we go. Now in this case, we're going to make this box using mitered corners, so they're going to be 45-degree corners, and we're going to have some reinforcing splines or feathers in there. So I'm going to show you how you'll do that. So L for line is the shortcut, and we just want to create these 45-degree corners. And there we go. So we've kind of got the basic geometry of our four sides set up. So we can come back and there's a few more things that we want to do back in here, but just so we can get moving with our box, let's finish the sketch and we'll actually create our sides. So we'll go finish sketch and you can see it there. Okay, so let's start now. We're going to extrude and I'm going to extrude one by one each of these pieces here. And so we're going to go up, and in this case we're going to go by our parameter overall height. So overall height, so we've selected that. And what we want to do over here is we just want to change this to new component and then go OK. Now our sketch has just disappeared, so what we can do is we can just open up here and just make our sketch come back. I'll just pan that down a little bit. Okay, so we've got one component here already. So it's good practice right now to start naming our components so we know what they're called. So we'll just right click on it, rename it, and we'll just call it end one. Okay, so let's go again. So we'll select this. Now we can go up and I can put the parameter in, or the other thing I can do is I can just click on that top edge there and it will automatically snap to whatever that is. And again, we'll go new component, okay. And again, good practice, end 2. So you can sort of see the pattern here. Let's go now, click to there. Now you'll see what it's done now, because there's two sort of components that are next to each other. It's saying, do you want to join these two together? And we don't. We definitely want it to be a new component. So we want it to be a separate thing. And then we go okay. Rename. And finally, there we go. So we now got our 4 sides to our project. Now in this particular project, very similar to how the lid was fitted on the phone safe project, in this particular project, the base is going to be fitted via a housing that is basically going to be cut using the table saw, and we'll use 3mm ply in this case. So we've got to create the geometry for that. Now at the moment, it's probably easier for us if we actually just hide the sides and the ends for the moment, and we'll go back to our sketch and we're going to just edit the sketch. Generally, when we create a housing, it's usually whatever the material that it's going into, the housing should generally be no more than 1/2 of its thickness and no less than 1/3. So we're going to go at around about the 1/3 of its thickness. So we're going to use the offset tool again. It would be, in some ways, it would be easier to offset back this way and it would make more sense. But unfortunately, one of the limitations of Fusion is you can't offset a line that's been generated by an offset itself. So we're going to have to go from the outside here. So we just click on all of our 4 outside lines and we're going to drag in, but the distance is going to be, and this is where we can sort of create mathematical relationships with our parameters. So it's going to be minus material thickness, times 2/3. So you can see it's a bit of a roundabout way of saying we're going to cut 1/3 into the inside face of our sides and ends. Now, if you look back in the procedure document, you would actually do this process. You'd cut the housing before you actually cut up each individual component. So we'll go OK. So we'll finish the sketch. So now what we'll do is we're going to cut our housing. So it's going to be an extrude. We'll select the 4 points that need to be cut. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to, well, the width of the cut is going to be 3mm. So we can put that in there, which is basically the width of a saw cut. But this is where it's going to get a little bit interesting. If I say cut and I say 3mm, it's going to give me a warning here. So it says there's nothing for me to cut. So what I can do here is I can turn these pieces on. So now I've actually got something I can cut into. But the other thing as well is I'm going to cut my housing 5mm up from the base of the material. So it's a housing and not a rebate. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'm going to offset that by 5mm. Okay, and the operation is a cut. So we go OK. Now, just to make things a bit easier for you to see, I'm just going to turn the sketch off and I'm going to hide this side here. So you can actually see the cut in there. So it's, very much like it would be in the real world. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to, pretty much using the same process with a few modifications, we're going to now create our base. So again, I'll turn these pieces off, turn the sketch on so I can see it. And we're going to do an extrude and we're going to create the base. So in this case, we're going to select everything that we cut, plus this middle piece here. Same as before, it's going to be 3 millimeters thick. And same as before, we're going to offset it by 5 millimeters. And the operation is going to be a new component. There we go. Over here, rename it base. Now just to check, let's turn on some things, just see how it's all fitting together. And we'll turn the sketch off so it can be nice and clear. And there you go. You can actually see that there is a base sitting exactly in our box there. We'll turn our side on. Just press escape. Okay, so we've got the basics of our box at this stage. We're starting to get a few components here, and it's starting to get a little bit difficult in terms of turning things on and off. So what we'll do is, this is our parent assembly. If we right click up here and press new component, we're going to create a new component, and we're going to call this box assembly. Then we'll select our first component here, hit our little shift key, select this one here so it selects everything in between. We're going to drag it into our box assembly. Now what it means is that when we start making things like lids and sliding trays and all that sort of thing, we can much more easily turn our entire box on and off. So it's just a good management tool. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a lid.